There's Bill. Thank you, Madam Clerk. I would like to welcome the public, my fellow council members, the media, and anyone else who's joining us in person and electronically for this Committee of the Whole meeting. My name is John Hirsch, Councillor for South Marysburg, and I will be the chair today. Today, committee is meeting at Shire Hall in Picton. Today's agenda lists all of the items before committee for consideration. The recommended motions on today's agenda are shown in boldface. Copies of the agenda have been posted on our website. This meeting is being live streamed, and any participation in the meeting proceedings will become part of the public record. Recording from the meeting will be live streamed on the county's website and can be viewed by selecting live stream meetings on the bottom right of the county's homepage at thecounty.ca. Under agenda item 5, I will be asking for comments from the audience. Today we have one registered comment from the audience. If anyone else present would like to speak to this section of the agenda present at this meeting, you are welcome to do so. Members of the public who wish to provide comments at future meetings can do so by contacting clerks@pecounty.on.ca to register. A reminder that if you participate, your name will be included in the committee minutes and form part of the public record and posted to the county's website. I want to remind everyone that we may differ in opinions, but it is important to remain respectful of each other. For those in attendance, please refrain from clapping in the council chambers, as it does not add to the discussion and is in contravention of the procedural bylaw. Any motion made at this meeting is not final until the council meeting of April the 8th, 2025, at which time council may approve, amend, defer, or otherwise change the motion made by this committee. In the event of a fire, please use the 2 applicable fire exits in Shire Hall or wherever you are tuning in from. For those in Shire Hall council chambers, please mute and limit the use of cell phones. I'll call this meeting to order and ask if anyone has a disclosure of pecuniary interest. Seeing none, that brings us to item 3, confirmation of the agenda. Could I have a mover and seconder to confirm the agenda? Councillor Pennell and Councillor Roberts.
Thank you. This Pennell Roberts motion that the agenda for the Committee of the Whole meeting of March 27, 2025 be confirmed.
Thank you. All those in favor? That carries. Brings us to section 4, deputations, and today we have one deputation, Kurt Vanclief, to address the committee regarding the planning process. Welcome, Kurt.
Good afternoon.
And you know the drill. You have 10 minutes, and I'll give you a 30-second warning if you're running long.
Thanks for the opportunity to share some thoughts here today. I submitted some slides last week. I'm a resident of Ameliasburg Township. I represent 2 farm properties in Ameliasburg. Our company, Willow Lee, owns one of the farms. The second belongs to the Stavely family. They've owned this farm for nearly 70 years, Keith Watson and his wife, Jennifer. Keith is with me here today. That family wishes to downsize, allow us to purchase the land and continue to live in their existing home. On property that Willow Lee owns, we wish to sever the existing farmhouse on our farm and continue to farm the land as well. We do not wish to be a rural landlord. It's not the business we're in. We want to keep this land still involved in agriculture. It's critical to our operation, given its proximity adjacent to it. The topic I'm going to touch on today is of concern to many other residents in Prince Edward County. The countryside has many more farm homes now than what our current farmers, as our industry's changed. Today, I'm also joined coincidentally by another neighbor, Gerald Pulver, and Linda Stather. She and her husband, John. All of us have situations very similar to what I'm going to refer to today. So here we go. So from what I understand, in June of 2023, Prince Edward County's official plan was amended to require hydro-G studies on all severances. This includes, from my awareness, a lot of additions and right-of-ways as well. So as a landowner, I'm required to hire a professional at a cost of $8,000 to $10,000 to do testing on my property. Then I must also pay to have another verified professional complete a peer review on the work of the original professional. That alone seems kind of odd to me. I hire a professional accountant to prepare our tax filings for Revenue Canada. They do not ask me that I send the same tax filings to another chartered accountant to review them. If there's an issue, at that point, then it's reviewed. The big question I have, or I want to propose today is, do we want to create progress in our community, or do we want to create process and obstacles? So just a rough idea, this is where the farm is in reference to the county. Let's see if somebody helped me to do this correctly. Both these farms are on Eatonville Road. Sorry, I thought that was going to zoom in, but it doesn't matter. So this shows us where we are. That's County Road 23 on the right-hand side of the screen. The farms are to the top left corner is facing the north. So that's Eatonville Road. It dead ends there about 1,250 feet in off County Road 23. A little closer, the farmhouse on the right-hand side will belong to the Redner family. We've purchased 3 different components of land from that family over the last decade, and the property to the left belongs to the Stavely family. We do currently farm that land, and that's the home that Keith lives in with his wife. Jennifer's family has owned that home for a significant amount of time. So both of these homes have existing wells, existing septics, and septic beds. They've been there a long time. If we were to sever something, which we haven't got to that process yet, it would look something like this. Remove the residential areas from the farmland, amalgamate the farmland, and continue to farm it. As I say, it's critical to operation. So what we propose really changes nothing on these properties from the current situation today, last month, or next month. They both have wells that supported those homes for decades. They both have septic beds in use today. We're not creating any demands on the water table than what are there now, or any additional effluent than what's in the soil today. So if we didn't change if we didn't ask to sever these, we would continue to manage these houses the way they are right now. We wouldn't require additional testing. We wouldn't require consultants. Everybody here would accept the status quo of what's going on right now. We do realize that if we were to proceed with this, that there will be no build clauses put on the remaining farmland to ensure nothing changes there either, and we're fully accepting to that point. So I ask, how do we get to this point? What is it that's really required, and what's the purpose of these requests? To do a severance in Quinte West, you don't require a well, you don't require Hydro G for any severance. Hastings County has a criteria to determine when a Hydro G is required, or when a typical well test is sufficient. What makes this region so different, and why do we ask or imply that our residents are subject to such costs and other regulations that we've imposed? In our business, we have to state a value proposition to our customers. Everything we propose to them, we have to create it and design it in a way that it has a value to them. I struggle to see the value in the cost of these studies and the implications they provide. The cost to do the study, the time and delays to conduct and manage the process, how it provides value to the landowner or to a purchaser in the future. Could all of this just be due to the simple stroke of a pen to say, what is the risk to the county, and what is the risk to the county if we don't do this? It's interesting that once we do this, we have to also state that Prince Edward County is liable for none of the data. There's a statement that must be added on title to our property that includes several paragraphs, or a significant paragraph, but Prince Edward County offers no warranty representing the quality and/or quantity or the impact of the water supply. It also states, Prince Edward County hereby expressly disclaims any responsibility or liability whatsoever or any other consequences, and it continues. And we have to register that on title. So after we've gone through this process, it's been reviewed by two entities that are deemed accredited and capable. We also have to state that we're not sure if the information is good. So we hear lots about governments encouraging affordable homes. Our housing situation is dire. And keep in mind that the costs we incur for this component of this aren't paid to the Prince Edward County. They aren't reimbursement for county staff or time or county cost reimbursements. This goes to these go to third-party consultants. I don't want to dig into the additional comments that I feel in this situation are somewhat unreasonable, such as contributions to parklands. Keep in mind, we're not creating any additional demands on the municipality from these changes. There are no more roads to plow. There are no more kids or minor soccer kids involved in what there could be now. There are no more stops for garbage trucks. None of that changes. Sorry, I think I missed clicking the slide, folks. Sorry, we're just about to the end here. So I summarized that I feel this municipality has the strictest conditions and the greatest demand on landowners compared to other municipalities in our region. And after we do all that, you state that you're not liable for the information. So can it really be trusted? We can talk about the what ifs surrounding this topic. We can talk about what if it's sold later. Well, that's between the buyer and the seller. It's a transaction of a house is between the buyer and the seller and the lawyer. Is it any different than if you were to sell your house today, Roy? It's a transaction between the buyer and the seller. So what's the municipality's responsibility to be involved at that point? Could ask, well, what if we want to build a second dwelling on that site? We need to know if those conditions are adequate. Well, what if we don't? Could we not address those conditions as they happen rather than create layers and layers of challenges in the effort to protect us against any possible issue in the future? I ask you to consider that our approach to planning should be reconsidered. Let's move things forward to build more. Sorry, I apologize. Let's move things forward and not to build more and more obstacles. I welcome your questions from my comments.
Thank you very much, Kurt. Committee, Councillor Brainy.
Thank you, Chair Hirsch. Kurt, thank you for coming forward and speaking about seeing things through your lens. You've been a long-time county resident, and I'm getting the same questions and concerns from residents in Hillier. You've probably seen recently that we have kind of proceeded to move forward with a review of service with our planning department. I hope that it addresses a lot of the concerns that you've brought forward. Are you hearing, obviously you're speaking on behalf of yourself, but you've got a few neighbors here. Are you hearing, is this something you're hearing quite a lot of these days from people, county residents, and people you've known for quite a long time?
Significantly, I have heard, and coincidentally, as I don't think it's a secret, Keith's in the land surveying business and involved with many applications. When I reviewed my thoughts to share with you folks today, I don't want to state the facts so they're inaccurate, but Keith could go on for some time of just conditions upon conditions, and we have to have rules. I'm not denying that, but I just ask that we ensure that I don't think there's a way we can legislate against any and all risk. And so at some point, we have to realize what's fair and reasonable. And if we aren't going to be responsible for something, why do we want to legislate against it? If my house runs out of water, the municipality is not responsible. If this house runs out of water tomorrow, you're not responsible. If I sell it, no matter what data came forward, and it runs out of water, you're not responsible. So within reason, what are we doing just by creating layers and layers of bureaucracy? And I think that is happening in many, many, many situations.
Councillor Harrison?
Thank you for your presentation, Kurt. This is an issue that has many times and many people have come forward with to me. And actually in our own farming operation, we run into this exact same thing. And it is totally unnecessary expense and serves no purpose. Thank you.
Councillor Maynard?
Thank you. Thank you, Kurt, for your comments. So the one you're by, this is basically surplus to the farm, correct? Yeah. So we have made some movement on that recently on easing those a little bit. So, I mean, I can't ask staff now because there's not planning staff here, but I think it's something that we can consider as we try and make the best use of the farmland we have, and also allow somewhat affordable housing for those that want it in a rural area, especially when you have existing stock there.
It's a very complicated situation because you go to a consultant who sends us a scope of work, you prepay them significant dollars, they do a whole bunch of studies, they kind of drag their feet. Well, we're not sure we've covered all the bases, so I've literally asked them, well, please tell me what I have got for my first $10,000 rather than just comments that we need to do more work. And so it's, as someone who's not an engineer and dealing with that stuff, I've now hired an engineer to help me interpret what they've told me so I can get enough data to actually make applications. So if changes are happening in the system, how does someone like me find out? Because when I first approached council or planning, I always suggested that this is a requirement for the application. So here I am spending time and money. We started this process over a year ago. Gerald started his a couple years ago. Keith started his last year. It's like you said, we have so many fewer farmers, and we have all this ag lands. We have all these farmhouses that we do not have 1,000 100-acre farms now. We have 100,000-acre farms. So we have a surplus of homes in the rural areas.
Councillor Pennell?
Thanks, Kurt, for your deputation. The one thing I'm curious on, I agree we're looking for affordable housing, but realistically, can you put any estimate on how much additional money we're paying out to somebody else for studies that could have been reducing the price of a house if you're selling it, or creating a house that somebody that can afford it?
I'm probably up to 15,000 on that lot. I have gone back to probably the most prominent company locally that does standard well testing. Here, for example, he doesn't agree with the protocol that they're using to do the calculations. Keith's in the middle of the same thing, so their family's trying to figure out if they can move forward and remain there. But I don't know what the number is yet, Roy, because I'm not done yet, but we're at like 15,000 so far. We're kind of just seem to be going in circles. I'm really struggling to figure out what the two things I have left to do to move this along, because it's consultants love to just say, I think we should do more studies. Here's another change order. Please sign this and give us a deposit.
Just a quick follow-up here. The other thing I'm curious on, when you start your process, is everybody saying, here's a paper, there's what we're looking at? It isn't a case of, as you go along, things added and added and added?
I don't want to speak to that because I potentially didn't ask for that. I understood I needed this to begin the process, so I thought in order to make application, I needed to do my homework, make a proper application. I suspect that Keith and Gerald sitting in the audience could list significant things regarding that, but I'll let them share that. Just, wouldn't be an accurate response. I do believe the woman on the screen has had her hand up too.
Councillor
Sorry, I
McNaughton?
just don't want to be rude to her.
Thank you, Kurt. Councillor McNaughton, go ahead.
Thank you, Kurt. I appreciate that. That's very nice. So my understanding is you've been working through this with planning staff, and is still not finding a favorable condition for a farm lot addition. Is that what I understand?
To clarify, we understood we had to complete this study and have it as part of our application. So I have not had significant engagement with planning other than the minimum requirement to submit an application. From the way it was explained to me was to have that for the first step. So we're still at step one now.
And but it's strictly, there's no actual on-site change of use in any of the anticipated lots. The farm lot, the agricultural area is still going to be used for agriculture. The living space is still going to be used for living space. There's an existing well attached to the one house that your application would involve currently.
That's correct. Both homes have wells, both homes have septics.
Okay.
They part of this was to determine if we could have a septic bed on this property. And my comment was, there is a septic bed on this property. And they said, well, you're proposing the septic bed is on a 2-acre parcel then, and currently it's on a 19-acre parcel. I'm like, it's the same septic bed in the same place. You want me to hire an outside contractor, dig a hole for you to do soil samples to determine if a septic bed can be installed there. In all of these situations, there are septic beds that are there today. With no changes and no changes in zoning, whether those beds are aged or not, those are still in use today, last month, next month, irrelevant of whether we proceed with this.
Right.
But there are no changes, no, we're not looking to make them short-term accommodations, wedding venues. We just want homes that we can sell to a family so Keith can remain in the family that his home his wife was raised in.
Understood.
Thank you.
So so this is something that we've seen in the past where there are so first off, I absolutely support that there should be water on a property accessible to a homeowner. However, these are existing homes. And we've made exemptions for agricultural severances, purely agricultural severances, to do exactly this in the past for some of the conditions attached. But I certainly think it's smart to be looking at the process as a whole and ensure fairness across the board and that we treat properties similarly. However, when it's something like this, in short order, planning staff can't move off. They are bound by their professional responsibilities to comply with all of our policies. If all of our policies don't quite reflect the reality on the ground, the only people who have the power to make exceptions generally are council. And we can, and we have in the past. So there, a short-term answer can be, coming to council, even if it's a proposed denial from planning staff. It is something that council can look at. But certainly the policy aspects of consents to sever exactly like this is something that has been an issue in the past and is something we can take a look at. And I think it's good to have it identified here as a standalone issue. So thank you for that. And we do have what Councillor Brainy referred to as a process coming, and that is something that we can be looking at that time. So you've got sort of the long-term solution and a potential short-term action if you want to try it. But thank you for laying it bare so that we understand how it lives and works for a local farmer. Appreciate it.
I appreciate your comments. It's a very somewhat complicated process for me, not being experienced in this. Typically, my thought is if there's a process, it's the same process for everybody. So if I'm going down that process, I'm denied, my assumption is that everybody's denied. But then if I hear that, well, actually, if you're denied, and if you know to take it to council and you know the right things to ask, they might say it's an exception. So
Exactly. It's a fairness issue.
I respect the position that council is in. I have the same struggle within our own business that we might make decisions on a topic that seem like they're required and necessary, and then we take that out to the field, literally, or to a process, and realize that there are many unintended consequences that we had from the best of intentions. And my respectfully, I feel that potentially this situation has been to create greater protection for everybody with the unintended consequences. We have a system that is somewhat excessive or redundant.
Point taken.
I think everyone in this room and probably our planning staff would agree that a process should be fair and should match the desired outcome.
Thank you.
Councillor St. Jean.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for bringing this forward, Kurt. I think it's important that when, as you say, you develop something I'll say in your case, on the farm, and actually try to take it out and put it into practice, things happen. Being polite when I say things.
Yeah, they do.
But it's also important to recognize that the official plan is a living, breathing document that can be changed, and recognizing that farm severances, which are totally different from consents for development, we'll say, should be treated slightly differently. I get that. But Mr. Chair, I'm going to ask you if I can ask the CAO a question about process moving forward, since she's here. Okay.
Okay.
So my question through the chair to you, Madam CAO, what is, and I know we're going to be, there's a review of the process at planning coming, but this is an official plan requirement. Am I correct in that?
Through the chair to Councillor St. Jean. Yes, so the Councillor Rainey's motion that was passed by council to do a review of the planning process, that report is coming to council on April 22nd. What has been discussed by Mr. Vanclief here in terms of rural severances and the conditions related to rural severances is not a process question. Yep. Notwithstanding the comments about exemptions, that's not really how it's supposed to work. Yep. So if it is the will of council to revisit the requirements on rural severances, then I suggest that you direct us to go and do that, because the process review isn't going to change the outcome. And if you rely on process, you're looking for an exemption after, as Mr. Vanclief has pointed out, the money has been already spent, because the bylaw for a complete submission is based, so the requirements you need to come in the door are based on our planning framework. If you want different front door requirements, then you change those requirements. You don't wait for the process for an exemption.
And that's where you knew it seemed to be reading my mind. That's exactly where I'm going. That it's clear that this piece isn't working, that it's causing, in some cases, hardship. So I guess that's the bigger question is, when can we do that, and how would we do that? What direction does the staff need, I guess, from council or committee to try to make these changes that we recognize just aren't quite working right?
So I'd recommend a motion amending the accepting of this deputation with some direction. Okay.
All right. Well, that's.
While you think about that, Councillor Brady.
I'll think about that right now.
It's good the CEO said that. I do have a motion to put forward that I believe will satisfy the presentation, also how we're feeling around the table. So,
Councillor Roberts would like to speak. Perhaps we'll let him do that and then come back to you. Councillor Roberts.
When I waved my hand, I didn't know there was a motion coming forward, and I think I know what it's going to address, and I think it'll be widely supported on council. You know, our civil service, municipal, provincial, federal, these are all good people. They're really trying to do their best within the rules and what they walk into in their professional lives in terms of accumulated stuff over decades. Having said that, I think we all really appreciate you visiting, common sense and lived experience, so that we can have a good discussion about how to go forward. And I think you're probably going to be quite happy with the motion. So, thanks, Kurt.
Thank you. Councillor Brainy.
I hope they'll be happy, Councillor Roberts. So the motion is that staff do a review of the requirements related to rural severance applications with consideration of the practices of neighboring municipalities and the risks and opportunities in reducing potential barriers.
Through the chair, I actually like a broader lens, because we've heard one example. There may be other, we've heard in site-specific planning applications, lots of concerns about hydrogeological requirements and the parkland requirements. I think we need to let staff look at this comprehensively and come back with their best advice. I like the wording to say what the intention is, which is reducing barriers, so that there's some direction to council or to staff about where you want them to end up.
I agree with that.
You want to read that again without the qualification?
Yes. So the motion would read that staff do a review of the requirements related to rural severance applications with consideration of the practices of neighboring municipalities and the risks and opportunities in reducing potential barriers.
That seems to work for staff. Okay. I've got Councillor Harrison and then Councillor McNaughton and then Councillor Roberts.
Yes, I would like to add some way in there. It's pretty broad, the rural severance thing, but farm surplus dwellings, because this is what we're dealing with here. Correct?
Well, that narrows it more than what the
Yeah,
CEO was looking
through
for.
the chair to Councillor Harrison, my suggestion would be to allow it. I think that staff will definitely be watching, and there's some staff already in the room here, so they'll be watching this discussion and using it as guidance. But I would be worried that if we just narrow it to this particular scenario, there may be other advantages to reducing barriers in other instances, that if we just look at all rural severances, it'll give us a little more room if we find other ways to reduce barriers.
Okay, thank you. I agree, but I just didn't want to lose sight of what this
sure.
deputation is about and what the problem is immediately about.
I've got Councillor McNaughton, then Roberts, then Maynard.
Thank you. Actually, it was very similar to what Councillor Harrison was proposing. I don't want lot additions and farm lot severances to not be considered with their own lens. I'm hearing from the CAO that, I'm confident that that staff will be taking that into account.
Yeah, I think rural is all-encompassing. Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The CAO said what I was going to suggest, so that's fine.
Perfect. I didn't get a seconder, actually. Did I? St. Jean, okay. Be seconder for that motion, Madam Clerk. Councillor Maynard.
Yeah, to the CAO, because now this will be broader than than what the request is today on the surplus to the farming. Do you have can you make a educated guess on the time frame for this, right? Because the more, the bigger the scope, the longer it's going to take. So I'm just, or whether it can come back in pieces.
Through the chair to Councillor Maynard, I don't think this is a really difficult report to write. Severances have a particular list of complete submission requirements, and staff would be looking at that list and saying, when does it absolutely have to happen and why do we need it in those? And I presume some version of trying to codify the exemption kind of outcomes that have occurred or sounds like council would like to see occur. So I think that if you want to we have a pretty full planning agenda, but that doesn't mean we couldn't move this forward in a timely way. I think it's not probably going to help the individuals who are already pulling studies together and moving forward right now unless they're prepared to wait. But I think within a quarter seems reasonable that in the next 2 or 3 months, we could bring something back to council.
So Q2. All right. So that would be, Madam Clerk, that would be an amending motion to the receiving motion?
The motion to receive was not put on the table yet, so you could just do this as a standalone motion and then follow it up with the motion to receive.
Okay, well, let's consider the standalone motion. Madam Clerk.
And if the timing matters to everyone, then I would suggest adding that to the motion, saying, and returning to council in
Q2.
wherever you land.
Councilor Brainy?
I'm fine with the timeline. I think what the CEO's had to say, I'm confident that it'll fit into a good timeline to have some answers back. So I'd rather leave it up to them.
Okay. Councilor Pennell, on the motion?
Yeah, I had one question, and that is, anybody that's in the process that's looking at spending more money, because we're now saying that is what you got to do, where does that leave them if they're already in the process? They're caught in the middle, spending a pile of money that, as far as I'm concerned, is unnecessary.
The CEO may have an answer for us.
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Pennell. So every landowner will have to make their own choice, but if they want to stop their process and wait for council's decision to see how it goes, they could do that. Or if their decision is time sensitive and they want to keep moving, then they can do that and bring their file forward. As you know, our planning process has 2 stages with a statutory meeting and a decision meeting. So it depends probably, have they applied yet? Have they been to a statutory meeting? So where they are in the process, I think that'll be an individual decision.
Okay. Everyone understand the motion? Take the vote on that. All in favor? And that carries very generously. Then I just need a motion to receive. Mover and seconder, Councillor St. Jean, Councillor Branderhorst.
I appreciate the opportunity to share these thoughts, and I I'm grateful for the respect you've shown for the concerns. I'm not qualified to speak for the agricultural industry of Prince Edward County, but Prince Edward County doesn't have very many industries besides tourism and agriculture. And what this boils down to is that as agriculture, without the ability to remove some of these surplus homes, I'm competing with people to buy recreational properties. And they may rent it to a farmer. They may just let it grow up to nuts and berries. And that industry still employs people, it employs our vendors, it employs our suppliers. So I appreciate the recognition. Thank you.
Thank you, Kurt, and you've laid out the situation well, and you succeeded in getting a motion today, so well done. Councillor St. Jean, the motion to receive.
Yes, Mr. Chair, it's St. Jean Branderhorst motion that the deputation by Kurt Vanclief regarding the planning process be received.
All those in favor? And that carries. Okay, thank you. That brings us to comments from the audience, and we have Gerald Pulver with us. You may have a victory on your hands, Mr. Pulver, so anyway, you have 3 minutes.
Yeah, so it's Gerald Pulver, and to fill in some of the holes that Kurt is proposing, I've already been through. So we started our application, we bought the farm in 2020. We started the application in 21. We filed for an application for a severance. It got extended because COVID got in the way. And then it lapsed. It lapsed because they keep throwing more regulations at me at the last minute. So I have to get a surveyor involved, get a lawyer involved because I need more stuff. And then when I reapplied in March of 2024, that's when this well that had to be done. And I believe it was Roy wanted to know what that cost. Well, it's over $6,000 plus HST for the initial testing, and then it has to go to a peer review committee that I had to pay for. And then there's stipulations because my application has been approved. But now I got stipulations, I gotta fix a well, and in my opinion, there's nothing wrong. The well's been there for over 100 years. It used to feed a canning factory. And like Kurt says, they want stuff added to my deed, that the health board has to be involved. So the long and the short of it is the regulations, to get right down to it, with all the stipulations they got on it, I got over $24,000 tied up in this application, and I'm not done yet. It's been approved last month, but I still have 13 conditions that I have to have. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Pulver? Councillor Pennell.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask the question. When you got into this process and they're being asked by the county for your well test and that, did anybody say along the way, hey, you can put a cistern in, you can put a holding tank in? Was that ever explained to you?
Absolutely not. These conditions keep coming. Every time I get almost there, I had to finish surveying the farm after we did the lot because they wanted to change it over to land registration. My surveyor and both lawyers says, what's this all about? And I said, I don't know. But that all cost me money and time, and that money and time made my application run out. So, and then they would not consider it until I paid for my second application. They said it won't go anywhere unless you give them another $2,000. So here we are, putting more money into it. When do I stop putting money in this dead horse?
Thanks.
Any more questions for Mr. Pulver? Seeing none, is there anybody else in the audience today who would like to speak? Keith, for some reason I knew you were going to come to the mic.
I'm Keith Watson, and we own 100 acres, and Kurt's been farming it for years. Now he wants to buy it, and we have to put in a severance application. And in order to put an application in, just to get it in the door, not to talk to commonsensical committee people, we're talking to the planners, and they're saying you must have a hydro-G study on the well that you've been using for 50 years and are quite happy with. So I'm going to pay $7,500 to have someone say, yeah, your well works well, Keith, it's good. Why do I need to do that? And I'm not selling the property, I'm going to live there. But in order to get the application in, you have to do these studies and pay for them first before they'll accept your application. So that's something in the process that seems a little flawed, that you have to spend whatever studies the planning department are asking for first before you put your application. It used to be where you'd get a severance, go through, and one of the conditions would be you need a well and a tested well. And that would be done after you had your severance approved. And if it didn't work out, then you didn't get your severance. But here, I've lived there for 50 years. The well works well, have a trickle system we paid for. Why do we have to have an expert tell me for $7,500 that your well works before I put my application in? That's the thing that I'd just like to see that looked at.
Thank you.
And on top of all that, as Kurt said, once everyone knows that my well's working, there's a clause that's put on title saying that if it doesn't work in all this requests that the county has made, we take no liability or responsibility for the quality or quantity of your water. Well, they're not taking any responsibility for it, and why should you? Why do you insist on all these burdens on me to prove that well's good? That's the kind of thing that we're running into.
And through the motion that we've just approved, hopefully we'll get to look at all that. Anybody have any questions for Mr. Watson? Councillor Pennell?
Yeah.
Don't run away, Keith.
My question is, a surveyor is no doubt used to properties being sold. Do not most people, say it was, wanted to buy it. Does most people not ask for a well report long before they make an offer?
Absolutely. That's what
Yeah,
I'm saying. It's
that's what I
it's a
thought.
thing between the buyer and purchaser. Where does the county need to play any part in that, you know? That's and why you even do respect, why do you, unless if you're creating a new lot and it's in a cluster of other houses and it might affect that, but when you're, you know, and again, if I was purchasing a house from, say, the Stathers, and which we happen to are, and we have that personal thing between the buyer and purchaser, we'll get a well test if we feel we need it. If not, we just make the deal with the, it's nothing to do with, you know, the county. But if it's a newly created lot, absolutely do all the tests, and we don't want to affect the people. But these are existing houses that have been there for 150 years, and why do we need to have such extensive studies? That's all.
Thank you. Any more questions? No? Any other comments from the audience? Please. Just state your name for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Afternoon. I'm Linda Stather. We're in the early step process of severing a home that is also surplus to our farming operation. We're in the next day or two drilling a new well on this property so that we're sure the well is within the new footprint of the home. It's my understanding after I pay Chalk Well Drilling to come and drill a well and give me the details on the well that I then have to immediately contact an outside agency to verify what he just did for me the week before. Redundancy seems a bit pointless.
Yep, we're certainly aware of the issue. Any questions from the committee? No? Okay, thank you very much. Any more comments from the audience? Seeing none, I need a mover and seconder to receive the comments from the audience. Councillor Roberts and Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a Roberts-Harrison motion that the comments from the audience be received.
All those in favor? And that carries. Thank you all. This brings us then to item 6, items for consideration, and 6.1 is a report of the Operational Services Department dated March 17th, 2025 regarding municipal boat launches review. Have a mover and seconder to put this on the floor, please. Councillor Maynard and Councillor St. Jean.
Yes, 03. You think I was new at this, eh? The council received report OPS 03-2025 that staff be directed to explore a long-term agreement for the Westlake boat launch and return to council with options, and that staff be directed to explore the possibility of at least one boat launch that could offer features and amenities that are specifically designed for people requiring increased accessibility standards, and return to council with information on cost and an implementation strategy.
Thank you. I see Director Gilmore is with us. You're going to give us a little rundown, Troy, on what this is about?
Yes, through you, Chair. Good afternoon. I would like to first begin by thanking my team for all their efforts that they've put into this, and a special acknowledgement to Stacy, who has spent a countless amount of hours drafting this and really being a key figure in what you have before you. So thank you to them. But given the size of this report, I just want to do a quick overview and highlight a few items from this report. It is a comprehensive assessment of our municipal boat launches, including the current condition, our maintenance strategy, and future capital upgrades. Through public surveys, consultations, and site visits, we have confirmed that all 13 boat launches are actively used. And based on some of our findings, we have planned events for 2025 to do some maintenance, installing rubber bumpers, along with docks, adding cleats to improve docking, and enhancing an existing paddlecraft docks, adding new ones to improve efficiency, and introducing shade structures and accessible seating areas, starting with Big Island in this summer, which is funded through Parkland funds. Some of the larger projects for 2025 we have on our agenda ramp repairs and dredging at Big Island and Premier's Cove, and additional long-term capital projects as outlined in the report. They'll be scheduled over the next 3 years. I'd really like to add that the funding for these projects will come from launch and parking revenues, as well as our current operating budget. So, and to ensure continued public involvement, we'll maintain ongoing data collection and feedback initiatives. And I'll work with communications department so everyone knows what we're doing and how we're doing it. But I'm happy to entertain any questions.
Thank you. I have to admit, yes, it is very comprehensive, all the pictures. I'm not a boater, so I saw pictures of boat launches that I have never seen before. So well done. Questions, comments from the committee? Councillor St. Jean.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Troy, for this. I think we're all aware of how important all of our boat launches are. Surprising how many we do have. I will admit I probably forgot about at least one of these, especially when you compare to our most neighboring municipality, Belleville, who has two and double our population. Interesting, but
yeah, we are an island.
Oh, I know, and it's interesting when you do look at the map how it's spread out across the community. It's every former municipality had one, at least one. But no, I just more or less want to comment. It's a very extensive report. Thank you very much for it. A couple of little clerical errors, though, that I noted. You probably know where I'm going. The boat launch at Wellington's actually in Bloomfield Hallowell Ward. And not that we don't want to dump a little more on Athol, but the Mabel Clenstable boat launch is in Bloomfield Hallowell as well. It's on Westlake Road, not County Road 18. So, but that's just a technical, just a clerical thing I get. But no, overall, thank you very much. I think this is a great approach to our boat launches.
Councillor Maynard and then Councillor Harrison.
Thank you. This was actually for me an interesting read, right? We've been talking about this, I don't know, decade or so, right? Since this, the fact that we needed to, the importance of the boat launches to this community, not only to the residents, but as a tourism generator, pretty significant tourism generator. So, and it actually gave me a chance to have a discussion with my partner who wants nothing to do with what I have to say about council, right? But the boat launches, but for those people, right, that use them, right? And there's some, and you've come up with some, and the Wellers Bay launch. I know how difficult it is now for me at this age to actually get into the boat when the water's low, right? Because it doesn't. So there's some of those things, but in that particular case, and I didn't hear you say some of the things that you were going to try and fix, the parking, because it drives them crazy when they come in and somebody just, pulls in and takes up those 6 spots. So that might be something really easy, because that's what when we were up there last year, he said, well, can't they just spray paint some lines and say, that you cannot park this way? That would be a really easy one. If you can get rid of that little dip at the end, I'd be grateful. But these are all, I think they're worthwhile. And yes, we are an island. And I think people sometimes underestimate the people that actually do come here, because the fishing is so good, some of the best in Southern Ontario. So I think this is not just for the residents, this is a draw. And even for those that maybe are here seasonally, I know a ton of people that have trailers at a campsite or whatever, and the only reason that they have those year after year after year is because of the fishing. But they still need a spot to launch.
Troy on the lines. Yeah.
Through you, Chair. Yes, I do agree. Collecting data and our, looking at all these launches in the park is ongoing. So we plan on this year really taking a look at the parking as well. But we really want to focus on the actual docks and the launch pads this year. So, but we will look at the parking.
I just thought that spray painting a few lines at the first on the grass the first of the summer and one sign might be helpful. But other than that, it looks good.
Councillor Harrison.
Yes, thank you, Troy. Very good report. I'm very pleased to hear about the improvements going to happen at Premier Cove. And we've discussed that, and we know the ins and outs of that. I'd also like to bring to council's attention that on the term before last of council, in the Wapoos ramp, which there is none, was there was $70,000 passed in the budget back then to construct a ramp on the west side of the dock, of the ferry dock, which is where traditionally there had been a ramp. And that would, of course, be a public ramp, where the one that's being used at the present time is at the marina. You have to go to Wapoos Marina to launch, and that future of that seems to keep changing a bit all the time. And it's come back to me again that the residents would like to see the permanent launch put in where it traditionally had been on the west side of the Wapoos Island dock. So I'll leave that one with you, and I'll watch for the construction. Thank you.
Do you have any comment on that? No?
Through you, Chair, I'll have to look at the money. I don't recall that going through my budgets, but I will look into that. And the big concern at that particular location is the parking and stuff, but we'll look into it for sure.
Have Councillor Engels go for, and then Councillor Pennell.
Thanks. Troy, when are the docks going in? No, I'm just kidding, because I don't. That's probably. I'm glad to see in the report that there's going to be some training and stuff so that we can maybe extend the season, because that's probably the complaint I hear the most, is that the docks aren't in early enough and late enough. And I'm glad we have this, because I think what I hear from people is that they're happy to pay the fee as long as they can see some improvement happening. So looks like we're going to solve some of that problem. So thank you.
Councillor Pennell.
I had a call from a lady this morning, and she asked me a question, and that was, if you're going kayaking or canoeing, which a lot of people are nowadays, do they pay for just a parking spot or for launching a boat? Theoretically, they're launching a boat but carrying it in. I thought it would be just parking, but I couldn't answer.
Through you, Chair, it'd be the fee for boat launch fees.
Maybe I'll just clarify. So a few years back, we used to have a boat launch fee, and then we changed it to a parking fee. So regardless of what kind of craft you are launching, you pay the parking fee. So we don't have boat launch fees. We have parking fees, and we allow you to buy a parking pass that allows you to park at boat launches for the whole season. But it's because we can't regulate whether or not you paid your boat launch fee and without staffing all the launches. And we found out that the honor system wasn't very honorable. And so it was much easier we can tell whether or not you have if you've paid and you're parking your car. If somebody wants to drop you off at the boat launch with your canoe, then you can not pay anything. But if you need to drive up there, you're going to pay the parking.
I have a question, Troy. In the this is before your time with the county, but in the great floods of 2017 and 2019, we didn't have docks available until probably midsummer because the water was too high. And then you have the situations, I think last year was one of the examples, where the water gets so low that people have difficulty getting onto the boats from the docks. So as I'm not suggesting anything new, but as we do replace docks, can we consider, the adjustable level variety, which is more money, of course, but can react to the lake level, which does change rather dramatically?
Through you, Chair, yes, we'll consider all those options when we're doing any kind of repairs, and it's the same as the ramps too. Some of the heights, may be adjusted, but yeah, that'll all be considered when we're doing our upgrades.
Because we were seriously out of commission for a long, long time, especially in 2019, as I recall. Are there any more questions? Councillor Maynard.
Thank you. So I'm hoping that, particularly probably the ones on Westlake and on Wellers Bay because of the sand dunes, right? That's where you get people that are coming, not necessarily, they're not putting a canoe in there, they're joining someone. So even if we could have a designated area, up the front, or where a boat and trailer would not fit, that's for cars only, and then maybe I don't care if you adjust the fee, although they're really not putting a boat in, right? They're just jumping on somebody else's boat. So that's just for consideration. And I would say, though, at the Rossmore launch, that was the other one that I had noted, because that launch is in close proximity to a far superior boat launch in Belleville, right? That it's inexpensive, right? For the larger boats, that this one, and because of the constraints in parking in that area, we might want to consider how we configure that launch going forward so that it doesn't have to take those big boats, because you're literally a stone's throw to the other side of the bay where there is a really substantial launch, because you can only get a few vehicles parked in there anyway. So that's, if any of them, I know that it's in reasonably good shape other than the drop off. So that one, I would take some of that money and put it towards something else, if it isn't my work. I don't think.
Any more questions? Seeing none, we'll take a vote on this. All those in favor? And that carries. Good. Well done. That brings us to agenda item 6.2, Report of Community Services Programs and Initiatives Department, dated March 27th, 2025, regarding the 2025 Tourism Management Plan and the MAT tax consultation. And we have Julianne Steps with us. You're going to give us, we'll put this on the floor first. Who would like to do some reading? Mover and seconder, Councillor Engelsdorfer, Councillor Roberts.
Thank you. It's an Engelsdorfer Roberts motion that Council receive report CSP 03-2025. The Council directs staff to consult with residents and businesses about community priorities for spending municipal accommodations tax revenue, and to return to Council prior to the 2026 budget deliberations with a proposal for a strategic municipal accommodations tax spending framework aligned with community input. That Council approve the 2025 Tourism Management Plan, Work Plan, and Budget as presented in this report. That Council approve the amendments to Bylaw 145-2024, Fees and Charges, Schedule J, Parking Control, as attached, to establish fees for the use of electric vehicle DC fast chargers. That Council approve the amendments to Bylaw 75-2021, Parking Bylaw Schedule N, Electric Vehicle Charging Stations, as attached, to provide for designated parking for electric vehicle charging. And that Council approve the amendments to Bylaw 145-2024, Fees and Charges, Schedule Z, Public Transit Fares, as attached, to establish fees for a dual system monthly pass in collaboration with Belleville Transit.
Thank you. And Julianne, this is the latest evolution of our ongoing tourism management plans and ongoing work. So are you going to give us a run through?
Sure, and through the chair to members of council. As the chair noted, the tourism management plan continues to evolve each year. It started as a response to over-tourism that was experienced during the pandemic, but it's become a valuable tool for coordinating summer service levels and using a portion of the municipal accommodations tax to support some tourism-related projects initiated by the municipality. So this report focuses on 3 areas. There's a proposed policy discussion for how the MAT should be spent in our community, or the municipal portion of the MAT. There's the 2025 Tourism Management Plan Work Plan that would describe how the TMP budget for this year could be used. And there are some bylaw updates, a little bit of housekeeping that's needed to implement the King Street Electric Vehicle Charger project and the new 2-system transit pass with Belleville Transit. So I'd just like to highlight the MAT policy discussion before your deliberations and questions. So right now, there's no formal policy that guides the municipality in how the municipal share of the MAT is spent. So over the years, the funds have gone to the roads program through the budget process and to tourism management plan activities delivered in reports from our department. But we've heard a lot of different ideas, especially recently, about how the MAT could be spent. Everything from housing to parks and roads and business support, public art, boat launches. So without some clear policy, it's hard to balance those competing priorities. And so what we're proposing is that we would engage with the community over the next several months in a discussion to develop a framework for how MAT, the municipal portion of the MAT, should be used in our community. And we'd aim to bring back some policy to council in the fall before the 2026 budget. So the report outlines some key assumptions that we'd be bringing to this conversation with the community, including that MAT funds should be used in a way that supports both tourism, the tourism economy, as well as resident needs, and that the destination development strategy that the previous council saw in 2021 contains some valuable ideas about this community's relationship with tourism that should be brought into the conversation as well. And that in this conversation, we'd be speaking not only to the tourism business and the tourism sector, but also to residents with no affiliation to tourism to understand what the broad community's priorities would be. So we wanted to make sure that we're approaching this in a way that aligns with council's expectations. And so I welcome any input you have on that consultation plan. As I mentioned before, the report also includes the tourism management plan activities for the year. It's mostly focused on continuing activities that we've done in previous years, continuing things that you have seen before. It introduces a couple of new projects, the Made in the County certification and promotion program, and some expanded summer transit service as well. And also in the report, there are those bylaw amendments that would help us move forward with those other projects. So lots of ground covered in the report. Happy to answer any questions that you have about the content.
Okay, thank you very much. Who's going first? Councillor Brainy?
Thank you, Chair Hirsch. Julian, thank you, and Emily, thank you for providing this. We just had our chamber board meeting the other morning, and we're eagerly looking forward to working with everybody on that Made in the County project. There is a question I have for you. I'm kind of interested in what you're hearing. Kind of the early days when I was here and with tourism management, you would get neighbors and folks that didn't quite understand it. I guess the good news is people are now, I think they're starting to realize how imperative it is for economy in the county, also for infrastructure. I think some of the money that and interest that we've had in 49 is because of our tourism management plans and how that benefits the county to try to repair a road like that. It's a question I have for you. Are you finding that too, where people are that maybe didn't understand or were reluctant on tourism management and that asset for the county, that they're actually starting to, okay, I get it now? Are you getting that feedback?
Through the chair to Councillor Brainy, I think that in the early days of tourism management in our community, it was very much a reaction to the moment that we were in, and there was a lot of things that were introduced through the plan that were necessary for managing tourism in the moment, but that created some frictions or some unintended consequences, but also did a lot of good work. And so as the program has evolved over the years, and it's become a little bit more about investing MAT in things that are good for the community, I think people are starting to come around to what this program is and what the opportunity is. It's helping to shape, I think, a more positive and productive conversation about tourism in the community. But as I mentioned in the report, we haven't had that conversation formally, so I'm excited to hear from the community about what the MAT revenue opportunity can do.
Thank you. Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's all good. I agree. Just a thought. Peter Lockyer and History Lives Here have been working for decades on PEC's really interesting history as an economic driver for our community. And History Lives Here is convinced, and I understand they have some evolving plans and some interesting oars in the water in terms of being a significant contributor to our tourism economy. And that may be even more relevant now, given our geopolitical situation, where Canadians are reinvesting in domestic travel and looking for tourism and historical experiences that are closer to home, specifically north of the 49th parallel. And so I'm just wondering if our, as you say, our evolving tourism management plan could have a chat with Peter and History Lives Here and just see where that takes us and maybe let us know.
Through the chair, certainly I'll take that advisement and reach out to Peter and others in the consultation process.
Okay, next up I have Councillor Maynard.
Thank you. Thank you for the report. Followed this over, from the very beginning. So I thought we still did have a formal policy, right, where half would go to, infrastructure and community because we have from that half, we have hived off some for those, for those, I shouldn't call them, but you know what I mean, the soft costs are the ones that are, supportive directly of the tourist industry. But it was always the intent, I thought, that the half that came back to the county would help support our infrastructure. Like Councillor Brainy just said, right, like County Road 49, if we're attracting tourists, and I mean, you don't have to go very far off of any of the few highways to understand the depth and the breadth of the infrastructure issue we have. And now that we're going to have to make our vehicles last many more years, we, like one busted rim or whatever, it is just, I will find a hard time allocating any more money to the, I don't know what to call them, soft costs, right? That the tourists, they get funds. They can do that. We can maybe do a few things, but I would not, even what we're spending now on some of those, I would prefer to see that go into things like our boat launches, which was always on that list, and our roads, because we are in a critical deficit on that infrastructure, and we will not be the place of choice to come if people can't actually, get around comfortably or have, reasonable services. And that's why it was meant for all, and then the tourists will also get some benefit from it.
And that's what this consultation will find out, is what the population thinks.
If I may, just a quick follow-up. So I did have something on the consultation. So the problem with this type of consultation, and I know, right, so you are not going to hear from that silent majority, because when you say you're having a tourist management policy consultation, they're not thinking about whether that will make any difference in how many potholes are going to get repaired this year, right? So there's always that, I call them the silent majority, that are very difficult to engage. So, I mean, it's okay to maybe, try a little bit, but I would not use that as the main indicator of what the population at large finds most important.
Okay, Councillor McNaughton, I believe I have you next.
Thank you. I would look to clarify, based on the report, Julianne, it looks specifically like you're going to be doing outreach with tourism related businesses regarding uses for the municipal portion itself. Can I just, is my understanding correct? As well as the general public.
Through the chair to Councillor McNaughton, that was the intent, that acknowledging that there are two key stakeholder groups here. One is the general resident population of Prince Edward County, who has an important stake in this conversation, and the other being tourism-related businesses, and who, through the services, experiences, and products that they offer, generate the tourism activity in the community, and therefore generate the tax revenue, that they have an important stake. And it's become a best practice across Ontario to involve those businesses in the conversation about what happens with this revenue, because it is so directly tied to their business, and to the development of the community as a tourism destination. So I did write in tourism businesses specifically, but if you'd like me to broaden that consultation to non-tourism related businesses, I would assume that they would be captured within the whole of the resident population, but could broaden it as well.
It was interesting to me when it was put forward that the Tourism Industry Association of Ontario would want tourism businesses to be singled out specifically. And that is, I think, understandable that would be their position. I don't, considering the voices of the community that have so long been saying we need to determine ways for tourism to help us manage our community because there are a lot of impacts. That's how I understand the municipal portion of the tax to be conceived for, which is those impacts. And I think looking to broaden it to just all of Prince Edward County is a stronger position, whether it's specifically businesses through business organizations and or just a general outreach. I think either way is better than just singling out the tourism industry, because I do really think that we should be focusing in on the principle, which is to offset impacts of the industry specifically. So yes, my answer to what you just proposed would be yes. I would look more broadly. I wouldn't single out tourism entities in any particular. They already have a good sort of chunk of that to be able to be put to use for tourism purposes. We will most likely always be using a small portion of the MAT tax for tourism management, which I think is excellent. It would be good to see the remainder get used for things, for those areas where the largest impact is felt, in my reckoning. So I would leave that with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Brandenhorst.
I have 3 points, and I'm going to see how many I can get down in the first round. My first question is, through consultation, were you hoping on bringing in, and I know your department is always so good, and you are specifically so good at this, but I always like to reinforce, a youth component, especially with youth feeling that they get typically ignored and tourism tends to get more focused on, with their ideas with how to incorporate this tax to better fit their voices into our community. Was that, and the plan was to kind of hit them?
Through the chair to Councillor Branderhorst, yes, we have good relationships and are developing relationships with youth serving agencies and youth in the community, and would always include a youth component to a conversation that is as broad as this one.
Next.
Yep. Perfect. Thank you. Just ease of mind, and also a little shout out to your department. My second one would be, I'm wondering, will this include any conversation about how individuals feel with how the money is getting used for Visit the County section of it, or will it be specifically stayed on our end? I know Visit the County has changed leadership, but I am just kind of curious on what your thoughts on that is.
Through the chair to the councillor, the eligible tourism entities that receive a portion of the MAT in Prince Edward County are Stay PEC and Visit the County, and they both have autonomy to manage their funds in a way that's consistent with the financial accountability agreements that we have with them. But they do have it explicitly listed within the legislation that governs this, that they must spend it on tourism, marketing, and development. And so how they go about that is those organizations have the autonomy to develop those work plans with their stakeholders. And we have relationship agreements with both of them that spell out the expectations, but we don't really, as a municipality, we don't get too deep into the operations with them.
Thank you. You may as well finish up.
Awesome, all three. Let's go. My last thought is, will the agricultural advisory be one of your stops for consultation with the MAT tax? Specifically just because when we're talking about individuals that are affected specifically with tourism, I would love a safety component about a drive safe campaign around farm equipment, farm vehicles, ATVs on the side of the road. and different individuals that what a slow-moving vehicle sign is and expectations with that, and also passing safe. There's a lot of farmers that have a social media campaign going around right now and have taken upon themselves to share stories about how they've almost been cut off by people passing, that they're just parents trying to get home to their children and be safe. So if that can be focused in on, and maybe a special shout out to, or I'm inviting you as one of the Ag Advisory Committee members, if you'd like to come and talk maybe a little bit more holistic on how we can, might have ideas, so.
Through the chair, certainly, and I think there are other committees that would probably welcome the conversation as well, so we'll take a look at that in the work plan for the consultation, yeah.
Super, thank you. Councillor Pennell, you're next.
Normally, when we set, we're looking, what are we looking at over the next 4 or 5 years? But I believe right now, we should be handling this money almost on a year-to-year basis. I suspect we're going to be in major problem, maybe towards roads this year. Maybe there's a specific dock that we would like to have fixed, or it could be maybe there's a spot where we want to have bicycle lane. And to me, I believe we should be on a year-to-year basis deciding where this is going to do, rather than trying to look 5 years down the road. Because nobody's going to know what's going to happen in the next couple of years. I suspect that that will be considerably higher than it does. I'm hoping. But having said that, there's a lot of other things that could stand in the country, and we basically have nothing at the end of the year. So a year-to-year basis, does that sound reasonable?
Through the mayor to Councillor Pennell, the first motion on this report is to go away and do the consultation and create a policy. If you don't want a policy, then you would need an amending motion to remove that. We are in a year-to-year process right now, and what we're saying as staff is that we think it would be worth having a conversation about a more thoughtful and longer term perspective on how to spend the money. But if you don't want that work, then you need to remove the motion.
Would that not come back to us in that report? We're recommending this is why. At least you got something to go on, because right now, this county is in bad financial shape. Every one of us know it. And it could differ where you got to spend the money on a year-to-year basis.
Well, it's certainly going to come back to us. And I think the point of doing this consultation is, in the last several years, we have made off-the-cuff decisions at budget time on how to spend our half of the Met money. CEO is smiling. It's true. That's how we do it.
But I'm asking for that consideration when it comes back to council.
Well, absolutely. So when we have this report, that will feed into our 2026 budget deliberations, so we can decide how to spend the money. Next up, I've got Councillor Enkelsdorfer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm hearing from a lot of businesses that this is kind of a wait and see year, just with the low Canadian dollar and what's happening south of the border. But on that note, Loyalist Parkway is our main artery into the county, and it's closed in Wellington right now, of course. So my fear is that we're going to get out-of-towners coming to the county not realizing that that's closed, and then they get sent around on detour routes and they get frustrated, and then it ruins their trip to the county, or they don't return later in the year. And just to add to that, the trail too is closed, and I know a lot of people visit the county to bike that trail or on a wine tour. So are we planning for that scenario, and what messaging are we putting out kind of outside of the county to let people know that that's happening right now?
Through the chair to Councillor Enkelsdorfer, I personally am not a part of any conversations around the detour and what messaging might be happening. I'm not aware of any plans, but I think I can take that away and talk to our partners, particularly Visit the County, about some messaging that maybe we can work with them on to support visitors' expectations and understanding of how that all works. And perhaps if needs emerge, we do have in the work plan, there is a signage and a comms budget that, depending on what the needs are and how that project evolves, maybe we could be supportive in helping tourists find their way around it. Yeah.
I would certainly hope that Visit the County would come to the table and assist in that. That to me would be strongly part of their mandate. Okay, Councillor St. Jean, you're next, and then Councillor Brainy.
No, I'm good. Thank you. I'm satisfied the public consultation is going to be broad and wide. No, so that was going to be my only question was, you know, how much, how broad is it going to be? And but I think I'm satisfied that it's going to be based on a past experience with some of the other consultation we've done. We don't just use have your say, which draws 1% of the population. It's one piece of the puzzle, and I'm satisfied Julianne's going to do an excellent job.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Brainy.
It's unfortunate Councillor Pennell left. He'll probably enjoy what I have to say, but I wanted to say that I like this plan. I know that this conversation comes up every year when you present this. I think we have to stick with it. I like what the deliverables, the public consultation. But I will say, and I'll say to Councillor Maynard, Pennell, and Grosso, he knows he's not here. We've heard you. I've heard you. I've driven Salem Road. I get it. But I do think we can all get our heads collectively together at some other point in time this year to try to find some answers for that. And I'm committed to that. And you've got my commitment to do that, because I wouldn't want to take out of this plan, because I think it is a good plan. But I do think we have some alternatives. We have options. We have some other creative areas that we can look at. And you have my commitment. There's nothing make me happier than to, because I understand those roads are tangible and they're visible to your residents. I get it completely, and we need to figure something out there. So let's all work together on that coming, you know, as we move forward, and let's do it as a team. All right.
Good, thank you. Councillor Maynard.
I can see, you know, that, so we're going to allocate the $116,000 more, you know, give or take on this study. I just, like, I'm trying to kind of do the math. Do we have a final figure yet of what, because some of this is talking about, you know, previous years or what we've actually budgeted. When do we find out what the final total for the past year, for the 2024 year would be? I got to follow up.
Through the chair to Councillor Maynard, we're anticipating a report from the Finance Department on MAT in May, later in the spring. And that'll give you the balance of the MAT reserve and the actuals from 2024.
Yeah, so we really don't have any idea at this point, eh? Okay. So I'll say, you know, so there's already half of it goes to tourist entities, right? I just, to $116,000 for a study to me seems a lot, and I would suggest
that's not
well, what does it say? It says 116,000. I'm just trying to, because it's not in a chart. That is including what then? The 116. We've got 220 and 116.
Julianne.
Oh, through the chair. Their attachment 1 to the report is the work plan, and the very last page of that is the proposed budget for 2025's tourism management plan budget.
Mm-hmm.
It's page 187.
Yeah, okay. 187, 188. I had 188. Okay. Well.
And so that budget includes items that were approved at budget time,
yes,
and it includes the 116. It's represented here as 130,000 because there are revenues that would contribute to these projects as well. But that includes everything from the Made in the County certification program, summer transit, communication and signage,
right,
a contingency in case things go off the rails, accessibility, Millennium Trail, and parks and washrooms.
Right. So that's, yeah, I had 226, but yeah, this one's 240 to the roads. Well, I will say that we had a policy it was pretty, it was well thought out when we put it in place. I guess if we're going to change course and divert money to other areas, when I think that's already, that's why I cannot support it, right? Because this was all based on, that we need good infrastructure to support viable tourism in the long run. Because there's tourists on sale, there's tourists on all of the rural roads. In particular, that's where they take the, where they take the most, where they're going to have the most unpleasant experience in the county.
Thank you. Councillor Pennell?
Just for Councillor Maynard's benefit, I believe staff have already told us that when they bring this back, a whole array of things will be looked at, and I think we almost got to have that report back before we can make too many decisions. And I know where you're coming from.
Absolutely. In terms of specific decisions, we want to see this work. Yeah. Is there anybody else? Let's take the vote then. All those in favor? And that carries. Thank you, Julianne. Thank you, staff. And that leaves one more motion. That would be Councillor Branderhorst and Councillor Pennell.
This is a Branderhorst Pennell motion that this meeting now adjourn at 2:31 p.m.
All those in favor? And that carries. Thank you.
I love it.